The scene in Blazing Saddles, near the end where everyone in the cast, we were filming Harvey Korman and the bad guys running away from Warner Brothers, escaping from the black area. When Blazing Saddles came out in theaters in 1974, nobody thought it would break so many rules. A comedy full of crazy humor, smart jokes, and actors who gave their best. The movie quickly became a huge hit at the box office. It made millions of dollars, surprised the critics, and earned its place in history as one of Mel Brooks's bravest movies. But as fans kept watching this classic movie over the years, some scenes started standing out in new ways. From funny behind-the-scenes stories to surprising mistakes hiding right in front of everyone. Come with us as we look into the movie and its actors and find the big mistakes fans didn't notice. The crazy comedy that changed Hollywood. Blazing Saddles came out in 1974, and it was unlike anything people had seen before. Made by Mel Brooks, the movie mixed Western cowboy action with wild comedy. It didn't just make fun of the old Hollywood cowboy movies. It completely tore them apart with jokes and humor that shocked people back then. Critics weren't sure what to think at first, but regular people loved it. The movie was a massive success, making millions and proving that people wanted bold comedy. It even got 3 Academy Award nominations, showing that Hollywood couldn't ignore what Brooks had done. Over time, it only got more famous. The American Film Institute later put it at number 6 on their list of the 100 funniest movies ever made, and in 2006, the Library of Congress added it to the National Film Registry, saying it was important for culture, history, and art. But behind all the laughs and success, there were also crazy stories, mistakes on purpose, and accidental bloopers that fans still talk about today. That's part of what makes Blazing Saddles a movie people never get tired of watching again. And the more you watch, the more you see how much craziness, risk, and creativity went into making this comedy classic, a cast like no other. The movie had an amazing group of actors who brought the story to life. Cleveland Little played Sheriff Bart, the smart hero at the center of everything. Gene Wilder played Jim, known as the Waco Kid, an alcoholic gunfighter who helps Bart win over the townspeople. Slim Pickens was Taggart, the clumsy but dangerous helper, while Alex Karras played the giant tough guy with a surprisingly gentle side. David Huddleston was in the cast too, and of course, Mel Brooks couldn't help but be in it himself. Brooks played 2 characters, Governor William J. Lepetamain, and a Native American chief who speaks Yiddish. He even did voice work for other background characters, showing he was involved in everything. Other people who worked on Brooks's movies before also showed up, like Madeline Kahn, Dom DeLucy, and Harvey Korman. Kahn especially left a big impression as Lily von Stuck, a German woman trying to seduce people with funny comedy. She became one of the most memorable parts of the movie. Even bandleader Count Basie made an appearance playing April in Paris in the middle of the Wild West. It was an example of the purposeful mistakes Brooks threw in, moments that made no sense in history but worked perfectly for comedy. The cast worked so well together that even the most ridiculous scenes felt real. And yet, as good as they were on camera, there were also stories behind the scenes about who almost got chosen and how some roles changed because of real-life problems. That includes one of the biggest what-ifs in comedy history. What could have been? One of the most surprising stories about Blazing Saddles is that Richard Pryor almost played Sheriff Bart. Back then, Pryor was one of the most exciting and controversial comedians in America. He was also a close friend and work partner with Gene Wilder, and the two would later star together in 4 movies between 1976 and 1991, including Silver Streak and Stir Crazy. If things had gone differently, Blazing Saddles could have been their first big movie together. Pryor even helped write the movie script, along with Mel Brooks, Andrew Bergman, Norman Steinberg, and Alan Yuga. But as Gene Wilder later explained during a talk in New York in 2013, Pryor lost the role because of his drug addiction problems. Even though he was brilliantly talented, the movie studio was worried about putting him in the main role at that time. So instead, the part went to Cleveland Little, who gave a sharp, smart, and unforgettable performance as Bart. Fans today often wonder what the movie would have been like with Pryor in the role. But in the end, it worked out great. Little gave the movie a special quality, and Pryor still left his mark on the project as one of the writers. This behind-the-scenes almost moment shows how close the movie came to being very different. And yet, even with all the changes, the comedy stayed fearless, chaotic, and full of energy. The changes in casting were just the beginning, because the story itself took viewers on a wild ride that nobody expected. A story that broke the rules. The story of Blazing Saddles happens in 1874 on the American frontier. It starts with the building of a new railroad, which needs to go through the small town of Rock Ridge. That land would be worth millions of dollars, and a greedy lawyer named Hedley Lamar comes up with a plan to force the townspeople out. He sends his men to scare Rock Ridge, hoping to clear it for his own profit. To make it worse, he tricks the stupid governor into making Bart, a black railroad worker, the town's new sheriff. His plan is easy. The townspeople will be so angry that chaos will happen, leaving him in control. But Bart is smarter than Lamar thinks. Even though the townspeople are mean to him at first, Bart uses his quick thinking and a little trick where he pretends to take himself hostage to survive. With help from Jim, the Waco kid, Bart slowly starts to win over the community. Along the way, he defeats bad guys like Mungo, who turns out to be more thoughtful than anyone expected, and Lily Von Stupp, who hilariously falls in love with him. As the story continues, Bart brings together the people of Rock Ridge with the railroad workers, showing them they need each other to fight Lamar's army. The final battle is pure craziness. There are fake towns, dynamite traps, and even a toll booth that the bad guys have to stop at to pay exact change. Then, just when it couldn't get any wilder, the movie breaks the fourth wall. The fight crashes into another movie set, spills into a cafeteria, and eventually ends on the streets of Burbank. Lamar tries to run away by going into a theater showing Blazing Saddles itself, but Bart follows him and ends it with a single gunshot. The movie ends with Bart and Jim riding off, not into the sunset, but into a limousine. This strange and playful ending summed up everything about Blazing Saddles. It was outrageous, aware of itself, and completely different from the Western movies people were used to. But did you know that the story of Blazing Saddles didn't start with Mel Brooks? It started with Andrew Bergman, who was only in his 20s at the time. The birth of a bold idea. Bergman came up with the original idea and called it Tex X, a tribute to Malcolm X. I wrote a first version called Tex X, he later explained, adding that the main character was directly inspired by Malcolm X. At one point, Alan Arkin was supposed to direct, and James Earl Jones was supposed to play the sheriff. But like so many early Hollywood plans, it fell apart. That's when Mel Brooks came into the picture. Bergman remembered saying, "I love Mel Brooks." When his name came up, Brooks said yes and told him he loved the idea too, but wanted to turn it into a Western. That was the start of something special. Brooks still had trouble with the title, saying no to names like Black Bart and the Purple Sage. Then, like many creative breakthroughs, the perfect name came to him in the shower. Blazing Saddles was born. Brooks later told Playboy magazine, "What grabbed me were the possibilities of a modern black man arriving in the traditional West." He put together a writing team that included Norman Steinberg, Alan Euger, and Richard Pryor. As Brooks said, Pryor wrote the Jewish jokes. The Jews wrote the black jokes. 9 months later, we had a finished script, with a title ready and a team of writers prepared. The movie was set to make history. But as you'll see, those writers weren't exactly Hollywood's best at the time. Writers on the edge. When Brooks started gathering his writers, most of them weren't in demand. Norman Steinberg had no movie credits, and Bergman had just failed to get a teaching job, even though he had a history PhD. Brooks himself admitted he felt washed up after. The producers and the 12 chairs failed to make money. The producers and the 12 chairs together didn't make me enough money to buy a new car. He later wrote in his book. Richard Pryor was also in a complicated situation. His career had taken a new direction, and he was doing edgier material inspired by the Black Panthers and extreme politics in Berkeley. He was also battling a heavy cocaine habit. Even so, his imagination and raw humor helped shape the movie. Scott Saul wrote in Becoming Richard Pryor that the writers were either new or struggling. That strange mix might have been the very thing that gave Blazing Saddles its fearless voice. Brooks himself admitted they weren't writing for everyone. He explained, "It was designed as a special little movie. We wrote it for two weirdos in the balcony, for rebels, movie nerds, guys who draw on the bathroom wall. My kind of people." What started as a small idea quickly grew into something much bigger. But before filming started, Brooks tried to bring in the biggest cowboy star in Hollywood. The cast that almost was. Brooks wanted the Wes